Made the time to get back into the wood shop for this video, and it's literally about time. I'm making a clock. I figured no time like the present. It's a very easy build anyone can do with simple tools and kind of fun, so here we go. I've got an old time-weathered board I figured would be perfect for this, so I'm starting on the miter saw to cut pieces about 11 inches long. I want to end up with a 10-inch circle, so I'm just going to make sure I have enough. This board is kind of wonky anyway, warped and bowed, so cutting it into short pieces is actually a good use for it. Then just a simple glue up and clamp of the pieces. I ripped down the one piece in the center just to kind of even out the joint spacing in the eventual circle I'm going to cut. And I knocked the edges off these boards because I kind of wanted to highlight the joints instead of trying to hide them. I'm just using Titebond 2 for this, and it's strictly an indoor use, and there's no need for any moisture protection and no reinforcement of any kind for the joints, just the glue. Then the old plastic straw trick for getting the glue out of the joints. If you've never tried this, it's a real time saver, and it works really well for getting glue out of the corner type joints because the straw can conform to the shape. And here I kind of filled up the straw, so you can just cut the part off with the glue in it at a 45-degree angle, and it's ready to use again. Or you can flip it around and use both ends. After the time out for the glue to dry, I took it out of the clamps and scraped the glue off the backside of the joints with a chisel. And before you accuse me of abusing my chisels, these are the ones from the cheap tool store that I have just for use and abuse like this. I have a good quality set, and having these cheap ones keeps me from being tempted to use them for questionable stuff. Then I take a straight edge and go corner to corner to find a center point. Now with a small strip of wood from the scrap bin, I have a small hole cut in one end, and I'm marking out 5 inches from that hole for a radius to draw a 10-inch diameter circle. After drilling the hole at the 5-inch mark, I use a nail to attach to the center point, insert a pencil in the other hole, and mark it out. I should have done this on the back side, but for this purpose it doesn't really matter. You can do this with a compass, or this method works just fine too. And there it is, a nice 10-inch circle. These are the little battery-operated clock mechanisms you can get for this. I ordered this kit online, and this is what came in it. 2 clock works with different length spindles and several sets of hands, so you have some choice for style and length. Enough to make 2 clocks. I'll leave a link to it in the description so you can check them out. Then I'm just using this drill gauge to find out what size hole I need to drill, as they didn't come with any type of instructions or anything. Looks like a 5/16 will do the job. A quick drill of the center. A little test fit. Good to go. Then I start laying out for where the clockwork will go and the size of the recess I'll have to make, and I carefully mark the outline of it all the way around. Then realize, duh, here it does make a difference. I have to do that on the backside. Seems like I have to screw up at least one thing on every project.
No way. Really?
So I flip it and do it again. To make the recess to hold the clockwork, I'm just using the drill press with a large Forstner bit to hog it out. I've got the depth set so it will sit in there and give me enough stick out of the spindle on the front side, enough to get the washer and nut on it. I'm just lining up by eye and making sure I get far enough out to get the corners in. This is a quick and dirty way to do it, and I'm not going to worry about making it pretty, as it's the back and nobody will see it. If you were doing these to sell, you could make a template and use a router to make a nice, neat, even cavity. But this way is just fine for my shop clock. And it's stink bug season, as you can see. I think he was hiding behind the power switch. I hate those things, but they seem to love my shop. Anyway, final hogging out done. Little test to make sure it fits in there and it sticks out far enough on the front. Looks good. The next step is cutting out the round clock, and I use a jigsaw again. This is an outside cut, so I could use the bandsaw, which would be faster, but I'm showing again that this stuff can be done with the basic, inexpensive tools. If you take your time, a jigsaw does a perfectly acceptable job. Depending on the style of clock you're making, it could be left basically square and just round off the corners, but I wanted a round clock. Looks like it'll do. Take it over to the belt and disc sander just to smooth out the edge using the disc, mostly where the saw cut began and ended, but a little smoothing of the whole thing doesn't hurt. Then I give it a quick chamfer at the router table, and I move the bit down just a little because I wanted just the slightest chamfer on there, basically just to break the edge on both sides. Then we come to the numbers on the face. I chose to do them with the laser.
Lasers?
Yep. So my son laid it out and we did a test on a piece of cardboard to make sure the layout was good and it was doing the numbers correctly. Then we did some tests on a scrap piece of the same wood to dial in the power and speed settings, and once we were satisfied, we went for it. Here we go.
Ready? Laser on!
I know this isn't exactly beginner level stuff here, but I chose this method because, well, we have the laser, so I might as well use it. You could also do it with a CNC router or a Shaper Origin if you had either one of those, which I don't. You could also print numbers with a 3D printer. But there are a bunch of ways you could put numbers on there inexpensively, too. You could hand paint them if you were artistically inclined, or you could paint them on using a stencil. You could also get number sets just for making clocks in either plastic or metal. I'll give you a link to those too if you want to check them out. They're very affordable. I think these lasers are pretty neat and cool to watch, but we'll speed it up here a bit. It took 25 or 30 minutes to get this printed, I think. So while it's doing its thing, I'm really enjoying making this clock. You could say I'm having the time of my life. A sundial's favorite pastime is light reading. A clock asked for a critique of its stand-up comedy routine. I said your jokes are secondhand, but your timing is impeccable. 6:30 is the best time on a clock, hands down. You'd have a hard time eating a clock. It would be very time-consuming. I tried to make a belt out of old watches, but it was just a waste of time. A guy held his watch up to the mirror. Time for a little reflection. I heard they're putting a clock on the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Then it will have the time and the inclination. I smashed a clock with a hammer once. I was just killing time. Well, enough of that. I'll show you more closely later, but this laser actually cuts into the wood, so these numbers end up recessed a little bit. It can be used to cut all the way through thinner materials, and we've used it to cut out templates from 1/4-inch plywood. I'm not sponsored by X-Tool or anything like that, but they are a pretty neat thing to have. I don't think they offer the same exact model that this is anymore, but I'll leave a link to a comparable one if you want to check them out. Not cheap, but might be worth the investment if you're doing woodworking as a business. One thing you need to be aware of if you do decide to get one of these is they do put out some smoke. It's literally burning the wood, so you need to use them in a well-ventilated area.
Inside of doing one number at a time, it puts that area under more heat.
Yeah,
Because it's faster at the.
and it gets back to it sooner.
Right.
The laser fire has ceased.
Yeah, you just move the table up. Yeah, let's go with the motor.
And there's the end result. Exactly what I was going for. It did leave a bit of charring on some of the edges of these numbers, but that's very light, and I'll take it out with a little sanding, which I purposely delayed until after the laser work just for this reason. A little shot of compressed air takes care of the dust, blows it out of the recessed numbers nicely. And then we need a little finish. I'm just going with a couple coats of water-based clear polyurethane just to seal up the wood a bit and protect it some from humidity changes, especially since my shop is not climate controlled. I put 2 coats on the front and I put one on the back also just to seal up the whole thing somewhat evenly, so it should stand the test of time. And now it's time to make it an actual clock. I picked out this set of hands to use and opened one of the washer and nut sets, and that's basically everything you need. Well, almost. I thought I would use a hanger I had, but decided that wouldn't work as well, so I decided to just use the little hanger bracket they included in the set, this little thing. It hangs it just over the mechanism, but should work okay. It goes on first, then the plastic washer, then you stick it through from the back and put on the brass washer and nut to hold it snug. I tightened it with a wrench, but was careful not to over-tighten. Then the hands just press on, so you kind of just press and wiggle, and there are different size holes that match up to different size parts of the axles or whatever they call it, the parts that move. Anyway, with the different sizes, it's impossible to get the wrong hand in the wrong place. Then stick in the battery and away it goes. So there it is, on the wall and doing what it's supposed to do. I think it turned out top notch, and in a timeless style. It's second to none. So, setting the jokes aside for a minute, this is something you can really be creative with, since there are countless styles, sizes, materials, and whatever. Here are some examples. You're only limited by your imagination. So get out in your shop and make one. I'm sure you can find the time. And thanks for taking the time to watch this video. I hope it wasn't a waste of time. See you next time.